Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Beckham will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow. It is Baker Mayfield.
I woke up feeling dangerous.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to another episode of the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki, and as always, I have my co-host from BigPlay.com, Jack McCurry, with me. How you doing tonight, Jack?
Doing well. It's our first episode, I think, in like a week, so we got plenty to catch up on as it relates to the Browns.
Yeah, we sure do. Mostly we're going to talk about the Orange and Browns Scrimmage that happened Saturday night. But first, we're going to jump into the Blitz.
Yeah, welcome to the Blitz segment where Anthony and Jack get you caught up with the news from around the NFL. This is the Blitz. I said this is the Blitz. I tell you, some people.
All right, Jack. Michael Thomas and the New Orleans Saints signed a 5-year, $100 million contract extension the other day. Where does he rank among current wide receivers? I know it's a very short list with him, Odell, Julio Jones, but where do you think he ranks among those guys?
Oh, he's definitely top 5 in my opinion. If you look at what he's done so far since entering the league 3 years ago, already at over 300 catches, almost 4,000 yards. I mean, he has been phenomenal, and it is amazing to me that he fell as far as he did in the NFL draft to the middle of the second round. I mean, he was an absolute monster at Ohio State. Didn't always have the production, but you could just tell that he fit the mold of a NFL wide receiver. And, you know, I'd put him in the top 5, definitely. I would go DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown, and then Michael Thomas would be number 5 for me. I think those are by far the 5 best in the league, and I think Michael Thomas has proved it. I know somebody said to me that he was overrated, but when you look at his production and what he means to that Saints offense, you can't keep him out of the top 5.
Yeah, most definitely. And, you know, I think that obviously that's a good deal for him and the Saints. It's curious to see how much longer Drew Brees is going to play. But would you say that Julio Jones is going to be next up on the list of wide receivers to get extensions? DeAndre Hopkins already got his, and Julio has 2 years left on his deal, 9.6 this year, 11.4 next year. Would you say he's next on this list?
No doubt. I mean, it's been talked about for a number of weeks, and I think they were waiting for Michael Thomas to get his deal done just to set the baseline for Julio. So I would not be shocked if within the next week or so that we see a Julio Jones extension go down.
And then after that is when we'll hear all the Odell extension talks start to begin. Ezekiel, Elliott, and Melvin.
Well, I was going to say, it's not really an extension. It would just be a restructuring because Beckham's already locked up for 5 years, so we wouldn't have to hear it. I don't think he's getting extended any more than he already is.
And then they might throw a year or two on top of it. We'll see. But Ezekiel Elliott and Melvin Gordon are still holding out. Did Le'Veon Bell start a trend for running backs wanting to get paid?
I would think so. I mean, you know, we look at it, running backs are, you know, they're replaceable. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when Chris Carson is ahead of Rashad Penny in Seattle, when Carson was a 7th-round pick and Penny was a 1st-round pick, that just shows you that you can find a running back anywhere. But I think Le'Veon Bell may have started a trend in the National Football League where you will see these players, especially at the running back position, tend to hold out because they know that they'll get their money regardless because they have shown how productive they are. And Elliott is very crucial to that Cowboys offense. Melvin Gordon, who actually asked out of Los Angeles, but the Chargers will not abide by that request. He's very valuable to their offense as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams handle the situations, because they are both playoff contenders, maybe even Super Bowl contenders. But if you take those two out of the equation, the Chargers and the Cowboys are two different teams. So it's going to be interesting as we get closer to week one, who's going to cave first. Is the player going to show up, or are the teams going to finally put out the money and say, we need you guys very bad, come back?
Yeah, it's gonna. I would tend to think that these will get done. The problem is that I don't think Melvin Gordon has much leverage in this case, based on Danny Eckler doing a really good job filling him for him last year when he was hurt. Ezekiel certainly has leverage because of what the production he's been able to put out. Moving on, Clay Matthews, the Browns announced, will be inducted into the Ring of Honor. They also announced that Otto Graham will receive a statue outside of First Energy Stadium, the original franchise quarterback for the Browns. Jack, when you look at these two announcements, I'm sure that they're both long overdue, and do you think that obviously it's a good move, but what was your opinion on the Browns finally taking care of these two former players?
I think you nailed it right on the head. It's long overdue. I mean, first of all, with Otto Graham getting the statue, it's amazing they didn't give him one back when it was at Municipal Stadium. I mean, you said it. He was the original franchise quarterback, and he was one of the first mega stars in pro football. I mean, he, early in the game of football in the 40s and 50s, it was more of a running league, and Otto Graham along with Paul Brown really transformed it into a passing game. And 10 years as a member of the Browns, they went to they won 7 championships, went to 10 straight championship games. I mean, Otto Graham was Tom Brady before Tom Brady became Tom Brady, and it's long overdue. He deserves a statue. And we talk about Clay Matthews. We've been pushing for him to get in the Hall of Fame, and it's amazing. I thought he was already in the Browns Ring of Honor, but for him to go in, and he's going in week 3 when his son and the Los Angeles Rams are traveling to Cleveland to face the Browns in what should be a potential Super Bowl preview. I think that's really awesome, and hopefully him getting in the Ring of Honor means the Browns are really going to push now and have a full-fledged campaign to get him into the Hall of Fame, because he's long overdue for that as well.
Yeah, I think having this feature on Sunday Night Football will certainly help his case. I saw a report that the NFL might have 20 entrants into the Hall of Fame next year for their 100th season. So this could be as good a chance as any for Clay Matthews to get in, and I believe he certainly deserves it. One more news of note, and that is that Phil Dawson signed a one-day contract with the Cleveland Browns so that he could retire. He held a press conference the other day. Jack, I know Phil was in conversation to potentially be brought in, and those rumors were starting to ramp up. But Phil decided to hang up the cleats after all these years. What do you think Phil's lasting legacy will be with the Browns?
I mean, when you look at it going back to 1999, he is one of the top 3 Browns since the return back in 99, along with Joe Thomas and Josh Cribbs. I mean, he made some unbelievable kicks in his career. You talk about the kick off the stanchion against Baltimore, the 2 kicks in the blizzard against Buffalo, the game winner his rookie season against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I mean, Dawson is... I mean, you can debate this between him and Lou Groza among who is the greatest kicker in Browns history. I mean, that's a great debate because Groza was great in his own time as well. But, to see Dawson come back and be so emotional about wanting to come back to Cleveland and finish it here. And he said that when the Browns had that Super Bowl parade, he's going to be here. So there's no doubt that Cleveland holds a special place in Phil Dawson's heart. and Dawson holds a special place in all our hearts as well as Browns fans.
Yeah, there's no doubt he'll be on a float during that parade with the cast of former Browns that are still tied to the organization, with Bernie and Matthews and whatnot. I would imagine that there's going to be tons of former Browns also in that parade as well. All right, the Browns held their Orange and Brown scrimmage on Saturday night. Some of the big notes that we'll discuss here is that Derek Willis and Jalen Strong are both working with the first team offense. Jack, do you see all the wide receiver spots currently taken with those two guys working with the first team?
When you look at that wide receiver position right now, I still only see 4 locks, and that's Beckham, Higgins, Landry, and Callaway. And then you have a group of guys that are fighting for roster spots right now. We got Jalen Strong, who is really coming on right now because, he was quiet during the spring and mini camps and all that. Now he's starting to get mixed in with the first team. You got Derek Willis, who's coming off an injury. And then you got the guys like Ish Hyman and DSG, and Davian Ratley, who we talked about going into camp as a guy that could be in that spot for the 5th or 6th spot. And he's been dealing with an injury. He's been sidelined most of the last week. So he's got a long way to fight back to secure his roster spot. So I don't see it as completely set yet because, the 4 guys in the hunt, I still think, they could fall out. Ratley could swing back in. So it's still wide open to me at this point for those bottom wide receiver spots. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Strong and Willis are definitely in the lead in terms of making the roster, with Strong being an X and Willis being a Z. I think the real one's going to come down to Ish Hyman and DSG coming back or fighting for that last wide receiver spot, being the backup slot to Landry. So it's going to be interesting to see once we get into these preseason games how this turns out. I know injuries can change this, but I think as it stands, your wide receiver group is going to be Beckham, Callaway, Higgins, Landry, and then a combination of 3 of the following: Strong, Willis, Hyman, and DSG. I would say 3 of those guys make it. I know 7 receivers seems like a lot, but if one of those guys turns out to be a good special teams player, and I think that's where maybe DSG gets the edge over Hyman at the moment. I think that's what it's going to come down to when it comes to that last roster spot for the wide receivers.
Yeah, I would say special teams, because you mentioned it, that's going to be the biggest thing I think that separates these guys, because we, in terms of the bottom of the depth chart, those guys are supposed to be special teams impact guys. And DSG I would put in right now just because of his kick return ability. And then, with Willis and even Ratley for that instance, those guys played special teams last year before they got their opportunity on offense. So I would give them the edge just because I don't know Jalen Strong's special teams background. And then, guys like Ish Hyman and even guys that are on the bubble right now, DJ Montgomery, Dorian Baker, if they ball out on the special teams unit, that might give them a chance to jump back in and have a shot to make the roster at the end of the day.
All right, the other thing to note from the Orange and Browns scrimmage is the right guard battle is certainly heating up. From all accounts and reports, Austin Corbett struggled when he was in there. Eric Kush seemed to hold his own. Jack, it seemed to be a step back for Austin Corbett this during the scrimmage. Is it still his spot to lose, or do you see Kush being the starter right now?
I still think it's wide open at this point. Hopefully with these preseason games, we might get a little more clarity, especially starting this week against Washington. But I would still think that it's Corbett's job to lose. But, our buddy Jake Burns said that, Corbett struggled. He had a tough time during the scrimmage. And, maybe it's because they're rotating in and out more frequently during the scrimmage. But, Corbett knows that, every rep is his chance to prove to the coaches that, this is why you guys need me in the line. I'm the best guy. But if he's struggling, then obviously the competition is going to keep going. You're going to have Kyle Kalis out there, Eric Kush. So I'd still say it's wide open, but I would still think it's Corbett's to lose as well.
Yeah, I would say so. I think with this Thursday during the first preseason game, you're not going to see you're probably not going to see Baker and the rest of the starting offense. But I think you might see the offensive line because I think you're going to use this opportunity to really see how Corbett and Kush perform in these in-game situations to get a better read on who is going to be the starting right guard heading into the season. As I said before, I hope that Corbett can lock it down. But, from what we've seen and what we've read is that, he's not exactly running away with it. And that's what I was hoping. I was hoping he would run away with it and it wouldn't be even a question. So as we get closer and closer to the season, we'll keep paying attention to this one for sure. Duke Johnson is still out with an injury. Kareem Hunt is finally scheduled to be able to practice. Jack, I know, this has been a huge topic of conversation of how the situation is going to play out with Duke Johnson. But now that Kareem Hunt is finally able to practice, how do you see this turning out? And is he able to play in the preseason while still being suspended? I can't remember.
Yeah, he is eligible to play in the preseason, and the Browns are still, fighting to let him, for the NFL to allow him to be in the building during that 8-week suspension, which I think is the best move. And I think it's silly that when they suspend these guys from not playing in the games, that they're also not allowed to be in the facility. I think that's a dumb move, and stuff like that needs to be changed. But, with Hunt, getting him out on the field, getting him acclimated in the offense, and I think that's good, helps build some chemistry and camaraderie with his teammates out on the field, even though he's out the first half of the season. So him getting out there, he was limited on Saturday. I think they're just easing him back in at this point. I wouldn't expect him to play Thursday night against Washington, but I would expect him next week against Indy for sure. As for Duke, we talked about this off the air. I just wonder if this is a legit injury or if this is something where, maybe Rosenhaus is telling him, hey, just stay off the field. I'm going to get you out of here. Don't worry about that. Don't, make the injury worse if there's an injury at all. We'll just kind of say there's an injury and we'll just keep you off the field and I'll get this trade done. But I think at this point, I don't think a trade's happening unless a team comes calling, begging for him. So I think in Duke Johnson's best effort, if he is faking an injury, get out there and play. Your production on the field will get you out of Cleveland, or it will get you in a more prominent role with the Browns. So hopefully all of these situations get resolved here soon.
And with Dontrell Hilliard really impressing everybody, it might make it easier to move on from Duke Johnson with him being the backup running back until Kareem Hunt is able to return. And, from training camp as well, Dearness Johnson has been performing really well as well. So, the Browns are definitely set at running back, whether they have Duke Johnson or not. It just remains to be seen how that situation is going to eventually play out. The last, piece from the Orange and Browns scrimmage is that Gregg Joseph is right now leading the kicking competition. He made all 5 of his field goals during the scrimmage. Austin Seibert made 3 of 5, and fans started to boo and voice their displeasure at him. Jack, I know as we get in, we get closer to the season, we want the kicking battle to be resolved with a clear-cut winner, kind of like the right guard spot. Who do you see pulling this one out as we get closer to the regular season?
Yeah, I'm going with Gregg Joseph. I was, firmly of the belief that Austin Seibert was going to be the man to win the kicking job. The Browns drafted him in the 5th round, but it just seems like, Joseph has come in, this is another season for him. He's comfortable, in Cleveland, facing the elements at the stadium. And, he showed it on Saturday. He hit a 51-yarder and in the drills. And then I think he had another long one during a simulated play situation. It seems like Seibert still has to get the mental aspect out of the way. There's no doubt he has a strong leg as well. It's going to be interesting once these games happen. And I think that, with the fact that Baker's probably not going to play a lot, that these guys are going to get their field goal opportunities plenty in the preseason. I think that's what's going to come down to. You're going to be in a stadium full of thousands of fans, screaming and hollering. I think that's going to be the best test. Training camp helps because, there is, somewhat of a fan base, and the scrimmage helped because there was like 40,000 people. But I think with a full stadium, NFL stadium, I think that's going to tell you which way this kicking competition is going to go. And it's definitely going to be interesting to watch.
Who else to you stood out during the scrimmage on Saturday night?
One guy that stood out was Pharaoh Brown, and that was a guy that I think we touched on briefly. We were talking about the backup tight ends and who would potentially make the roster and not make the roster. With Demetrius Harris and Seth DeValve in the concussion protocol right now, Brown got his opportunities with the first team offense, and he got a 20-yard touchdown from Baker to close out the scrimmage on Saturday, and then he threw the ball into the dog pound. And this is another guy that's big, athletic. He has an opportunity to make plays, and now he's getting that opportunity with the first team offense. And this is a guy that probably a lot of people didn't think would make the roster, but with DeValve sidelined right now, and even Demetrius Harris, Brown's getting those opportunities. And, if he can make the most of it, he could sneak in past DeValve as potentially third tight end. So that's going to be a guy to watch during the preseason because now he's getting that time with the first team offense. It's going to look good for him no matter what, because either he makes the Browns roster or he puts together a solid film that he can end up in another team and potentially get another role somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way of sneaking him onto a practice squad anywhere. So either he's going to make the roster here or he's going to be somewhere else come roster cut time. Anyone else stand out to you, or should we move on?
Mack Wilson. That was another name. I know Friday during practice he made a unbelievable interception diving for the ball, and then he was able to get up and run it in for a pick six. And then he had another solid performance in the scrimmage as well. So we were talking about Taki early on in training camp, but it seems like Mack Wilson's starting to get more comfortable on defense as well, and he's starting to make plays. So it's good to see our rookie linebackers are balling out so far.
Yeah, like I mentioned the first day I went up to training camp, both him and Taki really caught my eye. So I'm really excited to see how they're going to play on Thursday night in that preseason game. Watch those guys fly around and make some plays. I'm really excited for that one. Anybody else?
No, those were the couple guys that stood out. Other than that, it's all business as usual.
So as we wrap up the podcast here, Jack, is there any player that you're going to be really focusing on from this point forward in terms of whether it be they're looking to make a roster spot or whether they have it already locked in? Who do you have your eye on?
It's the right guard position. Honestly, when you watch preseason, and we'll watch it just because we got to talk about it here on the podcast. But the focus is mainly on the right guard position, and it's Corbett, Cush, and Kalis, and it's you want to see one of these guys emerge starting Thursday night. well, actually throughout the rest of training camp, but especially Thursday night against the Redskins. I want to see Corbett get it. I want to believe that he was picked at the top of the second round for a reason. And I just want to see him emerge and take that right guard spot so we don't have to worry about it. But if he struggles, then obviously we got to watch Kalis. We got to watch Cush. Both of these guys have NFL experience. Cush has the edge on Kalis just because he has started more games at the right guard position. But I'm just going to focus mainly on that specifically throughout the rest of the preseason. How about you? What's the one thing or the one player that you're going to keep an eye on?
It's the kicking competition. Last season we had many games come down to whether a field goal deciding it. And, when you're a good team, you need to make those kicks. Last year, Browns didn't, except for the game against Baltimore. This year, they need to in order to get to where they want to go. So someone needs to lock that down. I don't care if it's Joseph or Seibert. They have to lock down that spot and be extremely consistent when it comes to kicking field goals. So, I really hope that one of them can put it together well enough that we go into the season without any questions at that spot. All right, Jack, as we get on that here, you want to go ahead and plug your stuff?
Absolutely. As always, follow me on Twitter at jmccurrycle and check out bigplay.com. I am a writer and contributor over there, so I tweet out all my articles, and follow us on Twitter at bigplay_com, C-O-M.
As always, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at 1085gridiron and on Facebook with that extension as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Joki, J-O-K-I. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We absolutely appreciate it. You can find our podcast on any platform you can think of, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play as well. With that, we're going to get on out here. We should be back before the game on Thursday. If not, we'll do a post game and be back then. And as always, and most importantly, go Browns.